Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tina and I'm the Capability Building Coordinator for Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand.
Hey guys, I'm also joining Tina today. I'm Jed, Program Manager for TechSoup in the Asia Pacific region. Quickly, I'd like to welcome you all to Transitioning to Remote Work, Teams Quickstart with Microsoft. This is a free webinar we're co-hosting with Connecting Up, our awesome partner in Australia, as well as Microsoft. Now, enough about us. We'd like to really quickly move into the meat of the webinar. So let me introduce you two esteemed speakers for today, starting off with Dr. Diane Butler. She's the lead of Microsoft philanthropies in Asia. She and her team plays a key role in empowering communities across the region through leveraging Microsoft's assets, such as their tech solutions, expertise, and more. Joining her also is Paul Bowkett from Microsoft New Zealand. He has over 16 years of experience in delivering key cloud solutions such as Microsoft 365, Office 365, and Azure for local businesses. So Tina, back to you.
Okay, so we'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues throughout this session, please type it into the questions box, which is on your webinar panel, and Jed and I will be able to assist you through there. If you do have any questions during the session, please also type it into the questions box, and Diana and Paul will answer them in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Please note that your comments and questions will not appear to the entire group. If you are on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video of the webinar. If possible, please close all other programs to help you have the best experience. Please note that this webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and the slides will be sent to you as soon as we can upload them for everyone to view, so keep an eye out on your inbox. Before we start, I'd also like to remind you that there is a very short survey at the end of the webinar. We'd appreciate it if you took a few minutes to provide us with some feedback. That's all from me for now. I'll hand it over to Diana to get things started. Thanks, Diana.
Thank you so much, Tina and Jed. My name is Diana Butler, and I look after Microsoft Philanthropies for Asia. I would like to start today by thanking you. I'm really humbled by the incredible responses that I've seen from all of you, frontline organizations and nonprofits that are working really around the clock, treating patients compassionately in overcrowded hospitals, ensuring students are connected to mentors and online learning, and mobilizing quickly to help vulnerable communities across the region. On behalf of Microsoft, thank you for the courage, the leadership, and the commitment that you're all showing around the world. We are responding to what we've heard is a need from many of you. By the end of this webinar, hopefully you will have 1, practical guidance on getting started with remote work, 2, knowledge of where to access Teams and other resources and training from Microsoft, and 3, guidance on common communication and collaboration best practices in remote working, such as video calling, file sharing, and workplace chat. So in this session, we will include an overview and demonstration of how our tools can support common scenarios for nonprofits, but we will not address basic connectivity and devices or have a technical deep dive. In addition to what we'll cover today, we'll share many more resources and training and include time for Q&A. Listen to what else you would like to hear from us next time. In many ways, these are unprecedented times, and for many of us that have to work remotely and balance, finding a quiet corner in our house to also responding to the needs of our families. So accessing the right tools and technology has never been more important to stay connected to our work. That's why we put together an easy-to-use COVID-19 resource guide for nonprofits with details and links to the resources that you need. You will receive the full document after this webinar, and this is what it looks like. If you're scaling up your remote work capabilities or want to offer online versions of board meetings or even fundraising events, we have best practices for doing so. And as you'll hear soon, Microsoft Teams can help you with the built-in integration to Outlook, conduct all of your businesses, including, for example, 10,000 attendees in a Teams live event, or rely on built-in information protection. If you need to securely access critical line of business applications remotely, the guide will also introduce you to Windows Virtual Desktop and the resources to get started. The guide also contains information on app templates for crisis communication or virtual agents and chatbots to triage overwhelmed call centers. And it contains information on training for you and for your staff, as well as contact information for you to reach us if you need additional support. Our commitment to nonprofits is not new. Many of you in this call already know us and have been working with us for some time. And you know well the impact that we strive to achieve in the communities where we live and we work. For those that may not know us, I wanted to share that we have a team within Microsoft Philanthropies called Tech for Social Impact that specifically focuses on accelerating transformation for the nonprofit sector with technology. We spend a lot of time meeting with nonprofits around the world to understand what their needs are. And they have given us a lot of feedback on what kinds of needs the nonprofit sector actually has. Nonprofits need better tools to deliver their missions and to measure and communicate their impact. Many of you, of course, know this well. You also need tools that are built on standards that facilitate interoperability across solutions so that you can share information. You need tools that are built on best practices from nonprofits that are truly achieving meaningful impact around the world. Tools that are tailored for specific needs and workflows for your sector. And finally, tools that are secure and affordable. So with that in mind, we put together a team that includes basically solutions specifically targeting the nonprofit sector, and that we hope you will have an opportunity to explore. All of this, of course, is freely available to the nonprofit community. Ultimately, the impact that a nonprofit can have is largely a function of capital, labor, resources. And in a world with increasing funding constraints, which I'm sure many of you know about, the only deltas are productivity and innovation. So for nonprofits to scale up to the challenges facing us, you basically need to innovate. And technology can play a critical role in unlocking all of your potential. Improvements in nonprofits' productivity and innovation can and should be fueled by technology. So we believe digital transformation could be key for the nonprofit community and all the scenarios that you all care about. Ultimately, it starts with a secure, private, and compliant platform, but there are 4 core areas that we think underpin digital transformation in your organizations. One is engaging donors and volunteers for community connection and participation. 2, empowering employees, your staff, to be productive and creative. 3, optimizing operations from field offices to headquarters. And 4, innovating for impact to accelerate your missions. As you will learn today, underpinning all of this transformation is the need to collaborate. So our workshop today is precisely focused on a tool that enables remote working while also promoting collaboration. To share more about Teams, it is my pleasure to introduce you now to Paul Bauquet. He's a modern workplace specialist for Microsoft New Zealand. Paul, over to you.
Thanks so much, Diana. It's a real privilege to be invited to speak to you all today. I'm just going to go ahead and start my presentation on my screen here. One of the things that I've had the great opportunity to do working at Microsoft for many years is work with quite a lot of non-profit organisations in New Zealand with our Office 365 service, and I know we have folk from all over the Asia Pacific region on this session today, so I'd like to also express my gratitude and thank you for attending today. I hope that you get lots of good tips and tricks out of this. There will be many people on the call today that have used Office 365 and have access to that. We'll be talking, of course, at the end of the session about how you, if you don't have it today, how you can get Office 365 and Microsoft Teams for free for your organization and volunteers, and how you can get started. But I'm hoping that the folk that are on the call that already use Office 365 will be able to take away some tips and tricks and a few little new concepts that you could help implement really this afternoon and in the weeks and days coming to help your businesses in this interesting time that we're all in at the moment. So without further ado, let me jump on into some of the sort of scene setting, if you like. Many of you are probably aware of the Office 365 service, but I just wanted to touch on what we're now really referring to as this kind of toolkit for teamwork. Most of you will use or have used, of course, our Office applications in the past. These products are pretty synonymous, of course, with Microsoft. But about 8-9 years ago, 2011, we launched this new service called Office 365, and there's still people today that have Office 365 and they might just use it for the apps, but really Office 365 is a lot more than that. It's about this broad set of technology that includes the email and calendaring kind of piece that is critical to doing business and engaging with our citizens, but also content management through SharePoint, the ability to store and share and synchronize files, and then of course also our new service Teams. And so this whole suite of technology comes together to form the umbrella product called Office 365. And the really great thing about Office 365 is that there are probably tools that you might use today that you might be paying for, or perhaps you're using freemium versions of those products. But what happens is you tend to not have control of your intellectual property, or you tend to possibly have to log in and out of different applications, having to do things like password resets and managing that kind of whole IT environment. With Office 365, once you put everything into Office 365, then you can really genuinely work from anywhere. That promise that's been around for a long time of being able to basically work on what you want, where you want, how you want, is really here now with Office 365. Now, the bulk of today's session is on Teams and on the ability to work remotely. And so to set a little bit of a scene around that, I wanted to just go on to kind of an overview of Teams itself. And so we like to talk about Teams as the hub for teamwork. Now, I am going to do a presentation today, so we'll do a little bit on the slides, but I won't do too much on slides. We're also going to jump into the product and actually do some real world demos for you as well. So don't be concerned if you don't pick up anything right now, and I'll cover it when I do the presentation or demonstration as well. But the key thing inside Teams is the way we think about it is that it brings together lots of the things that you might do in a disparate way today. So if you already use a chat and messaging application, maybe you use WhatsApp to connect with your volunteers. Maybe you use email through Office 365. Maybe you use some third-party product to do project planning and campaign management or fundraising and donor management. Then with Office 365 and Microsoft Teams, we bring that together into one single place. So an example might be when I go to work in the morning, or when I'm sitting at home as I'm doing at the moment, working, then I'll go to the team that's relevant to the project that I'm working on. So if I need to go and work on a particular project plan for a new product launch, then I'd go to that team, and inside that team would be all of the communications to do with it, would be all the files to do with it, all of our meetings and recordings of those meetings, plus also integrated apps as well that allow me to kind of be productive and what we like to just call staying in context and staying in the flow, rather than having to bounce around to lots of different places. And really, if you take nothing else away from today's session, is that's what Teams is really about. It's about bringing together everything into that one single place. So let's expand on some of these in a bit more detail. Many of you, of course, are familiar with chat applications, and I won't go through the basics of chat services. A couple of things that stand out inside Teams, though, is that you can have one-to-one chats or one-to-many chats. So you can quickly spin up a chat session with a group of people in your business and external to your organization, and bring all those people together for a quick brainstorm or to resolve something or to get to some sort of point or action. And then that's then recorded for, or not recorded, but is available for reference at any point. And it's what we call a persistent channel discussion. So we can go jump back in there in a month's time and kickstart that conversation again. As I mentioned, we have the ability to do guest access, and so we could actually be doing this through Teams right now, and I could invite all of you into a group chat in that session, and we could all collaborate. And there's lots of those fun things as well that you can do, depending on how the mood is and what kind of forum you're discussing. I'll show you some of that and how we're actually using that inside of Microsoft as well. And of course, we have access through lots of different applications through mobile, on the iOS, on iPad, on desktop, of course, and through a web browser as well. The other core area inside Teams is meetings. And so many of you be familiar with products like Skype. Of course, we're using a webinar-based platform today to deliver this content. Teams also has similar capability to this. It started off being really as more of an internal conferencing service, if you like, but you can invite anybody to a Teams meeting and they don't have to have a login or an account or an application. You can send them a URL and they can click on that and they can access the meeting through a browser and get video and voice, everything like that, straight through a web browser with nothing to install. And you can see on the screen here quite high fidelity definition video. The product has been built from the ground up to ensure it runs very, very well in pure cloud environments. But we also have things like room systems. So there's a little device there in the middle. It's a Lenovo device that happens to be, but most of the major hardware phone manufacturers make these types of products that are certified for Teams. And so if you have an organization that has rooms with conferencing video screens and things like that, you can plug one of these devices in, and as you walk into the room, it will auto join you to the meeting. It'll start the audio and the video service, and it'll start the file sharing as well. So super powerful ways of getting connected. When I'm stuck in Auckland traffic, when there is traffic in Auckland outside of the current situation we're in, I can jump on a conference call on my phone on Teams without having to worry about dialing in those fiddly kind of dialing in numbers and PIN codes and things like that. It will dial me into a voice or, in this case, a video call as well, and I'll see all of the video and screen sharing happening there. We also do some pretty cool stuff here, like live transcription and translation. So if you're running a call across different countries and different languages, then you can have live subtitling and translation of that, which is pretty awesome. And we also have the ability to record all of our calls, and I'll show you that in action shortly. One of the other areas inside Teams is the ability for it to become your phone system. Now, you can call anybody from Teams to Teams today. So if you already have Office 365, you can find someone. So anybody who's running Teams today can use the search box at the top of the screen to search for my name, my email address, excuse me. So paul.bowkett@microsoft.com, and you would find me and you would be able to interact with me through chat and video and voice. But we also have the ability to do what's called PSTN connectivity. That is the public switch telephone network. So if you'd like to have Teams as your actual phone system to replace your traditional PBX phone system, you can do that. There's just an add-on SKU or license that you buy. And then most of the major telcos around the region provide what we call Teams Direct Route services. And so if you were to ring my landline number, it will ring my desktop computer or my laptop, and it'll also ring my mobile device as well, but it rings the Teams application itself. And we've got all the standard features you'd expect, things like call parks and call queues, auto attendance type stuff. So call in, push 1 for this, push 2 for that. Doing things like hunt groups, so it rings around a group of people and the next available person can answer the phone. All of those types of things are available inside Teams. So hopefully you're starting to get a feel for, when you're working inside Teams, you have access to all of the chats and communications, you have access to all your meetings, and you have access to all of your phone calling and history and voicemail and things like that as well. We also integrate into all of obviously the Office apps, so things like Excel and PowerPoint. On the screen here, you can see there's a chat conversation happening, and somebody's embedded an Excel and a PowerPoint document inside of the chat. And so people can open those files directly from there. They are stored in the cloud. You no longer need to worry about where your files are stored though. So it's not like traditionally how you might work today, where you might go to Windows Explorer, and go to your F drive or your H drive, some sort of shared mapped network drive, and try and cipher through lots of folders to try and find a file relative to what you're working on. In this case here, we jump into the marketing team, and we can instantly have access to all of the files that are applicable. The other cool thing about this is that you can open the files directly in Teams. You don't need to have Office running on your desktop. So for all of your volunteers or people that you might not want a license for Office apps, they have access to the full Office web apps, and that will open Excel and PowerPoint and Word, etc. in the Teams application. And you can also do things like collaborate in real time with other people on those files as well. So super cool capability. Some other stuff for those that have been using Teams for a while, we've added some new stuff in there in the last little while. One thing is shift management. I've included this in today's session because many of you will have volunteers or people that might need you spin up to handle specific crises or specific needs. And so the shift management component of Teams allows you to schedule people based on their geography, their skills, their availability, and a number of other facets. And so if you thought about, say, maybe you needed to mobilize a set of people for a specific initiative that's happening in a nearby city, you could find out through this who's available to do that work, who's available, who has certain skills that you might need, and that call goes out to all those people through the Teams app on their phone. And so you can also see on the mobile device here, you can see the person's shifts that have been scheduled into their calendar. The other part about this is also the task management. And so we can roll out custom applications, which I'll show you in a moment, and full task management. So this particular example here happens to show a retail environment where we've got someone's taking a photo of something that's happened there. Let's say it's an earthquake that's happened. And so someone's taken a quick photo of that, log that in, and assign that into an open queue, if you like, or you could individually assign it to the current shop floor worker if you wanted. So some pretty cool stuff there. It's all out of the box today in Teams. I won't spend too much time on the security and sort of technical aspect side of this today, as this is really an introduction session. I will just say though that because of the rise of video conferencing due to COVID-19, there has been much press on the privacy and security of video conferencing services around the world. And so I do just want to cover the fact that with everything that we do at Microsoft and our Office 365 and other cloud services, everything is security first. So we are end-to-end encrypted. We do not use your communications. We don't have access to your recordings, your video, your conferencing service, your data, any of that kind of stuff. And we provide a whole lot of information protection tools for you, things like, of course, multi-factor authentication. You cannot join a Teams meeting without being one of the members invited to it, unless you choose to make it open. And even then, it's a very long URL that people couldn't guess, which is a problem that's been going on with some other vendors recently. But we also include some things like data loss prevention and legal hold, which essentially means that we're locking down the data that you're sharing in Teams, so that certain people, even people in your own organization, can't necessarily download it, put it on a USB key, or email it to other people, which we think is super important in the kind of security world that we now live in, with the dangers of bad actors. And just a couple of more slides before we jump into the presentation now. I just want to touch on this. I have kind of alluded to it before, but you do have access to Teams right through the desktop app on Windows, also on Mac. We're a first-class citizen on the Mac OS, as well as on iPad and the Android and iPhone device as well. And I'll do a quick demo on the iPhone for you shortly. If you're at home and you just want to access Teams, you can jump on a web browser and connect and log into Teams. And remember what I said before about having access to all of your projects, all of your documents, your calls, everything like that. You think about the power of being able to do that from any device, literally anywhere in the world, with not having to worry about VPN connections into your office, or in the current scenario, we have a lot of companies, right, that can't work from their offices, and so therefore they don't have the ability to use their phone service because their phones are part of their office. And so Teams really does change all of that. A couple of cool things I just sort of touch on before we jump into the presentation. I've talked already about inline message translation, but we also do some pretty cool stuff. You can see here the live captions in the top middle screen. So you can imagine if you're on a call and maybe there's some bad audio, or perhaps you're in a really noisy environment, maybe you're sitting in an airport lounge, or maybe you're in the jungle somewhere, and you want to be able to jump on a call, you can turn the video off and you can turn the audio off if you really want, and you can read the transcriptions that are happening in that call. I actually find it quite useful when at Microsoft we get double booking, so I end up on 2 meetings at the same time. So I'll join one of them, and the other one I'll just partake and listen to, or rather read what's going on to make sure I'm not missing anything important. A couple other neat things, we have a live whiteboard as well. So if you want to do brainstorming, of course, people are missing that social interaction right now and the ability to stand in front of a whiteboard and kind of brainstorm solutions and ideas and that type of thing. And so with the shared whiteboard technology, you can load up a whiteboard and people can start drawing on the whiteboard on their own screen or typing away, but works great with pen touch devices. And so you can ideate as you go along and everyone can see that in real time. Another really cool thing in the middle center, down the bottom there, some of the cameras we have for Teams actually allow see-through. So this is a person using a traditional old school whiteboard where we're actually showing that whiteboard to the other people on the particular call. On the right-hand side, we've launched customized backgrounds internally at Microsoft. We've had the blur background feature at the top for some time, so you can get away around those funny incidents where you've got kids running in the background or other things going on that you don't want people to see. But we've also got the custom backgrounds. You can see an example of one down the bottom right-hand side. That will shortly roll out. In fact, for those that are using Teams now, there's a whole bunch of features and services that we'll be bringing out over the next month and 2 months. Some of them we've accelerated because of the COVID-19 situation. Of course, Teams usage has really gone through the roof. I think we're something like 750% increase in Teams usage because of this. And so a lot of people crying out for custom backgrounds, and you can use that for branding and all sorts of cool things. All right, so let's jump out of the PowerPoint right now. I'm going to go and jump into a bit of a demonstration here. So let's jump into Teams first off. Now I am showing you guys real life Microsoft Teams environment here. This is not a demo. And so hopefully I'm not going to be showing anything too confidential. I don't think we will be. But I wanted to show you in context of how we genuinely work and how we genuinely use it. So the first thing I'll just orientate you to have a look at is the navigation menu on the top left-hand side there. We're actually currently in the activity view area. This is kind of, think about this a little bit like your inbox. This is where I jump in here and I can see what people are talking about. People are messaging me. I can do things like filtering here. I can go and filter this by people that mentioned me, by replies to my messages, by missed calls, by voicemail. As you can see, everything's kind of embedded into that one single experience. I can also look at what's trending or what's been suggested for me across our organization as well. I happen to be on particularly a chat here, which is in a team called the WVD, which is the Windows Virtual Desktop Community. And there's a number of people having a conversation here. Wanted to just call out a couple of quick things here. You can see that everyone has a little traffic light signal next to them. Tells me whether they're away, they're on a conference call, whether they're busy, whether they're on a phone call, in a meeting, things like that. You can see that Darren is available. I can hover over his name, it'll pop up with a little card. Actually, let me just scroll up a bit here. So it'll pop up with a little card here and it'll give me the ability to interact. I can see where Darren works. I can then start a message to him. I can do a quick message, or I could go into more of his detail. Let's go and do that just for fun. I'm going to click on the org chart button here. It takes me into a new view now. And this is showing me Darren's org chart. So when you're all using Office 365, everyone's organization structure is known. And so I can navigate up this. I can look into our country manager and see that he's in a call. And so on. I can go all the way up to our CEO, who's currently showing has been away for 20 minutes, which is pretty neat. And so really nice to be able to find people. You can do skill searches in here as well. You can do the search box here. I can type in things like, looking for a specialist in SharePoint, for instance. And I can type in SharePoint like this, and it's going to give me a list of all of the teams and all of the relevant things to do with SharePoint. in this particular search here. That's just showing me the quick view there. I could go in the more detailed view. Pretty cool stuff. I can do some nice things like /org and then say I want to know who the org chart of let's do this person here, Sarah Bowden is. And so that jumps me directly to Sarah's org chart, and I can see all of her people and whether they're available and those kinds of things. The other thing that's happened is on the left-hand side of my screen, I've now actually jumped into my chat area. This is where we might do one-on-one chat. So if I jumped into the chat area here next to Sarah's name, I would see all the communication that I've had with her. We've got all the files that we've communicated and shared together, and all of the activity that we've had. So that's files we've worked on, meetings we've been involved in together, those kinds of things. I've also got some pinned favorites up here. So all of these people here I work with regularly. So I've decided to pin them to the top of my chat list, which is pretty cool. I'm going to just minimize that for a moment. And then down here, I've got all of the different chats that I've had, both individual chats and also meeting chats. So all the meeting chats, the ones that are in blue or purple here, are recurring meetings, the ones that are still going on. And so there's a whole bunch of fun things that are involved in some of these chats, which I'll jump into. In fact, let's just jump into one of those right now. So this is a check-in chat that we had here earlier today. So we do some fun things at Microsoft, of course, to keep everybody engaged right now. You can see that Carol has actually just started typing a message up here to a number of people. So that's a group chat that she's just dropped a little message into. But this is a big, large meeting that happened earlier today. That was a check-in for our entire team that I work in, about 50 odd people. We're in this, and you can see that people can post nice things, and you can go in here and type, hey everyone, great day today, that kind of stuff. And you can do some pretty cool stuff like add in like little animated GIFs and GIFs or whatever you'd like to call them, pictures and those kinds of things. So it just keeps things entertained and interesting. The other thing you can do is filter all this. So I can go in here and say, I would like to filter this by just unread sessions or meetings only. So I can go and say, I only want to view unread stuff. And it's going to jump into another example here. Earlier today, this was an event that happened that I missed actually. This was a worldwide mining community call because I'm interested in something to do with mining right at the moment. And so this is an a weekly call that happens. And you can see that there's a recording here. So this call actually ran for 48 minutes and there's an entire recording of it. So I can jump onto the recording. I'm not going to go and play it just now, but just to give you a feel for it, if you miss a meeting or if you wanted to record something for the broader community that you work with, you can go ahead and do that inside of Teams and then make that available in Teams for everyone in your business. I'm just going to go ahead and pause that video. The other cool thing is this uses something called Microsoft Stream, which has got a very cool technology which allows you to search the content of the recording for certain words. You can search for when your name was mentioned or when some actions were mentioned or when so-and-so spoke, as an example. So if you don't have 40 minutes, or in this case it was recorded for 30 minutes, if you don't have time to do that right now, you could go and jump in here, look for when your name was mentioned, go to the key point in the session that you wanted to hear about, and then you're done. So you've saved yourself having to spend that whole hour or even 30 minutes in a call. So a great way to be able to be efficient with meetings, but also a great way to disseminate information to people that are in different time zones that can't be live in the sessions with you as well. So pretty cool stuff. And you'll see that inside here, in every meeting that we have in Teams has what we call a meeting lifecycle. So if I scroll back up here, you'll see that we've got previous things that happened in the past. Not a lot of chat happening here. There's lots of people joining the meetings. But if there was lots of chat and files shared, I would see all of that history. We've also got the whiteboard I mentioned before and also the files that have been shared as well. So really, really powerful from a meeting life cycle. You think about, you have a meeting, you want to load the meeting up before you have it with the agenda or with the pre-read material. And in post the meeting, you want to have meeting minutes, actions and things like that. And you can do that all from within the actual meeting that happened itself. All right, so let's jump onto the Teams area in the navigation panel now. So now I'm actually in the core Teams area of Teams, if that makes sense. So I've got some pinned teams on the top here. These happens to be ones that I use regularly. As you can imagine, they're ones that I'm part of the New Zealand small medium business team. I'm also part of the Microsoft New Zealand overall team, and this is our overall channel. And we've got things like, if I jump into the social club activity here, we've got some fun things going on at the moment because we can't do in-person social club stuff. We've got a few games going on where people need to guess which is their baby photo for individual people. So just a bit of fun. We like to keep things, keep the social interaction happening. And of course, you can do that all through Teams, even though people are working from home many miles apart. People can feel like they stay connected. We have both these types of activities, but we also have daily check-ins, as you saw before, and we also have kind of our leadership team every couple of days as well, so that people get to ask questions and understand how the overall company is responding to the current crisis. And we also talk about some really good stories in there as well, and how people are helping customers and how we're all handling it. So that's pretty cool. One of the things I did earlier was I created some teams specifically for this. So I created a fundraising team here and also a board team. So I just went ahead and created those, super easy to do. You just simply click the create button down the bottom here. And I've gone and just added a couple of notes in here. There's nothing really that fancy about it at this point in time, but I can go and add more people to it, of course, from inside our company, but also external to our company. I dropped a fundraising plan PowerPoint in here, which I can go and look at in the files area if I wanted to. Of course, I don't have many files here, guys, to show you this, but if I clicked on the sync icon here, I can then synchronize those files offline to my local machine as well. So say I'm going to jump on an airplane with no internet, then I can still be productive and access those files on the go as well, which is pretty cool. For those that are interested, this is using SharePoint and our cloud, essentially our Office 365 cloud storage service for this, which is pretty cool. Underneath each of these individual, or in each team, we have what we call channels. So we always have a general channel, but then I've also created another one called campaigns. We've got another one called donor operations, grants administration, volunteers, and so on. When you come to set up teams, you need to have a think about how you'd structure your team environment. Do you want to have individual teams for volunteers versus donors and grants, or do you want to have all those as channels? It kind of depends a little bit on what information you want to share with other people and kind of how you structure your business a little bit, or your not-for-profit operations. But inside this one here, I did add in what we have is something called Planner, which is a task management lightweight project planning tool. So in here, I added some very basic things. So I've got a campaign thing, and I've called this thing my to-do list here, and then I've got some gamification, a task called gamification, and engage media companies, prepare content, and I've got a couple of other tasks under here as well. So the idea behind this is that I can both assign tasks to people, but I can get a quick summary snapshot of the status of a project that we're working on. So let's say you're about to do a fundraising campaign, or you're about to do some special initiative with a group of benefactors, whatever it might be, then you can jump in here and manage all the task side of that through here, instead of kind of sending emails and you get all those long email threads, or you try and do it in a Word document and then some people can't access it. So this is a really, really great way to manage all that stuff. Once again, I haven't even left Teams yet, and I've been able to orchestrate everything that I need to do in my day-to-day job. Okay, and one of the things I'll just point out is that every time you're in a channel like this, you can also go here and you can add in more tabs. So if I click on the little tab button on the top here, I can go and add in lots of things that I'd normally do. Like maybe I've got an Excel report that I want to add in here. Maybe I've got some dashboards through Power BI, which is our reporting tool, or maybe you use a third-party product. Maybe you use Box, or maybe you use some sort of application that does your donation management, for instance. If they've built a plugin to Teams, then that'll be available inside here, and you can add that in just simply by clicking on the item, and it will go ahead and add that as a new tab into here. I haven't got any ones that I'll go through today, other than just I've dropped a website link in here to the TechSoup website, just to show you kind of what that looks like. So you can point to anything you like: an application, a website, a form, a survey, a report, whatever you like. Everything again relates back to that particular channel or team that you're involved in. So pretty pretty cool, easy stuff. I've also got a full calendar here. I won't jump onto that because it's going to show my real live calendar. But what I can do inside my calendar, of course, is join meetings. So I've started one right now. I haven't quite started it yet, but I wanted to quickly show you this. I am running a preview version of Teams actually inside Microsoft. So for those that are running Teams today, you won't have this feature just yet, but you'll see that I'm in a meeting here. I'm about to join a meeting, but it's a pop-out window. So it's a completely separate window from the actual other view that I'm looking at. So we're doing multi-window, multi-pop-out across chat, meetings, and so individual one-to-one, one-to-many, and meetings themselves, which is pretty cool. And so this is what we call a meet now, which just means it's just it's an impromptu meeting. I'm going to turn my audio off. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn my video on. This is me here. Hi guys, and I'm going to click on this little button here. This is my preview. This is what people will see before I launch the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some backgrounds in here right now. So let's go and put in, I'm going to do a nice Microsoft one. How about that? So there you go. I've got a nice little Microsoft background in my session here. Or we could do, I'm going to do something a little bit nicer and put some New Zealand landscape in. How about Fiji? Kind of cool, fun stuff. This is about to roll out in the next sort of month or so to customers around the world. So if you have Teams already, you'll be able to do that. We've always had the blur background feature, which is this one up here, which I'll just show you now. So you can always blur the background over here behind you. But that's a pretty cool feature because it allows you to obviously hide where you're sitting and where you are. And you can actually make it look genuinely like you're actually sitting in office. So some pretty nice ones here. This is my current favorite one because I'm working from home, not my actual house. But I love the photo. So there you go. So I can join the video right now, and then that would allow me, or join the call now, and that would allow me to start initiating a session, invite other people into it, and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down now. So hopefully that was kind of interesting and insightful for you. Actually, let me just jump back to the chat here. I'll just show you how that works as well. Let's pop out this here. So this is the window we were looking at before. So I've popped that out. I'm going to go here. This is an individual chat that I had a little bit earlier with someone. So you can see that I'm just popping those chats out. So I've got my worldwide mining community one here. I can be typing away on a call right now on that meeting right there, and I can be individually chatting with other people on the side, so to speak, here as well. So yeah, pretty cool capability. Incidentally, just while I'm in here, this is an individual chat with one individual person, which I can initiate a call or a video directly from here, or I can just go and click on add a new person and just go ahead and add a whole new person to this here. So I can go ahead and add in Bill Gates and so on like that. And obviously that wouldn't be a wise thing to do, but you can see I can just quickly add someone into a meeting, which is pretty cool. Okay, guys, so that's kind of almost bringing to a close most of the core stuff in the product. I just want to jump into the calls area before. I already alluded to this, that we do have the ability to do outbound calling, but you can of course call anybody that's already on Teams. As I said, you just type in the search box up here. You would literally just type in my name. In this case here, you would be going Paul. Oops, just typing a bit fast. So you would go paul.bowker@microsoft.com. like that, and I would then, obviously it's a little tricky when I'm already trying to do it myself, but I would just simply click on the person's name and I'd be able to instantly start a call or a video conference with that person there. This is my contacts area though, where I keep all of my contacts. This is my Outlook contacts plus organization-wide contacts. You can see here that it's showing me the status of people. These are my favorites. I've got my soft dial tab here, and I've also got my call history as well. So I can go into my call history and see who I've called. I can also go into my voicemail, and we do some pretty cool stuff in here. We do transcriptions. So you can see here, our transcription service has taken a go at transcribing the voicemail for me. This is also delivered to my email inbox as well, which is pretty cool, which gives me just the ability to basically go and view that without having to listen to the voicemail. All right, guys, well, that's a quick overview of Teams. I'm just going to jump back into the PowerPoint here. I've got a couple of little demo slides that I wanted to just show you of things that I've talked about, just to bring them to light a little bit more. So this is an example here of Power BI running inside Teams. So imagine if you had a fundraising dashboard or some sort of operations dashboard, you can pop that directly inside Teams, so you're not off trying to find that dashboard, look for it through the web browser or whatever. So some pretty nice capability there. There's an example of a much more complex task management step. I won't spend any time on that, but just to give you a feel for that. Here's an example of this particular case here. There's a Northern Disaster Planning channel or team, and there's a healthcare channel within there. And within that, they've actually got a custom application or a third-party application integrated into that. And this has got obviously different phases and steps to their healthcare disaster planning process, which is pretty neat. Here's an example of just opening up a presentation inside of Teams. I didn't go through the process of that before. This is a PowerPoint running in here. And I've also done, at the top here, you can see that the keyword search is earthquake exercise. And on the left-hand side, it's showing me all of the messages that have the term earthquake exercise in them. But we could also find people in files. Remember how I mentioned before about finding people with certain skills? Same thing in this. If you typed in earthquake, clicked on people, people can profile themselves in Office 365 based on skills. So you can go and quickly find people that might be able to help you with a specific need. This is an example of capturing employee feedback here. This is just a very basic form. Inside of Office 365, we provide the ability to do surveys and forms very, very easily. That data is then spat out and analyzed in either Power BI or Excel. So super easy to spin up a form and do that kind of stuff inside of Teams as well. And the last one I'll finish on is just this American Red Cross case study. The ability of Teams to be what we call extensible is quite powerful. So you can actually build what we call low code or no code applications. So you can add in using something called Power Apps. You can build basic little applications. Maybe you've got something that needs to track say assets that you've got, or maybe you need to track expenses or whereabouts of people or whatever. You can do all of that using this this capability. This example here is the American Red Cross using Teams to track, in this case here, service delivery. And there's a shopping cart capability, so they can add supplies in. So they could drop a note in or an order in here to say they need to order more PPE equipment or whatever it might be to support the initiatives that they're working on. So I hope that that's interesting for you. I think there's probably a lot of use cases with that. And with that, guys, I'm going to hand back to Debbie now, Diane, excuse me, to take over and run us through to the end. Let me just switch over to you, Diana.
Thank you so much, Paul. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. So to close off, we wanted to show you two examples of organizations in our region that have already started using Teams in innovative ways. And we chose specifically two that are using Teams in different ways. One of them is an organization that is basically providing training services online, which I know many of you might be interested in. And the other one is basically continuing to run their operations and engaging employees through Teams. So the first example is in Sri Lanka. It's an organization called STEM Up, and it's one of the largest volunteer-based nonprofits in the country. They have more than 1,000 volunteers. They're really committed to making sure that the students do not have to stop learning. And so they started delivering online courses and resources via Teams. They basically conduct, the training courses through Team live events. And because with the current situation, they cannot do any in-person, dojo type of events with IT centers and public libraries, they created a new weekly virtual dojo series that is live streamed. And so students can still, interact with each other and can interact with the volunteers, ask questions, and basically continue to be engaged with STEM Up and the great content that they're delivering for their beneficiaries. Another example that we wanted to highlight was in Australia, and they actually started using Teams just last week. So if you haven't used Teams yet, but are interested in doing so, you'll be inspired to hear that the local Aboriginal Land Council in New South Wales in Australia actually plan to use Teams at the end of the month. But because of the work from home orders, they had to basically fast track the rollout. And the first day of working remotely was the actual first day that they went live on Teams. It was great to see them, continuing their business across New South Wales in all the regional offices across the state. They've had all staff meetings with up to 130 people online. Their CEO was able to continue business meetings with the different stakeholders, and actually, they were able to plan a statewide humanitarian aid program to assist the most vulnerable Aboriginal communities in New South Wales. The council has 9 different regions, and together they've been able to convene and basically conduct their normal businesses through Teams. And they've also been able to actually enable their employees to be connected, and while working from home, keep the morale up for all the employees. So you can see on the screen a shot of one of their staff, and basically sharing their work-life balance and the new normal that is expected of all of us. In my team, one of the teams I'm part of, we continue to use Teams as well to keep connected, and we've done everything from a virtual happy hour last week to sharing pictures of our pets, and I had more than enough of my fair share of pictures of cats and dogs and fishes and all sorts of animals that people have at home. To finish off, we wanted to share with you more resources that you can access if you're interested. In terms of accessing Teams, organizations that are international organizations that don't have Teams available or that would require additional support during this period can have a new offer. Basically, we are providing Office 365 E1 free of charge for 6 months. And for nonprofits, E1 has always been free. You have access to several donated and paid offers for eligible nonprofits of all different sizes, and that includes Office 365 Business Essentials, Microsoft 365 Business, and Office 365 E1 for larger organizations. And the last sort of offer that we have during COVID is making Office 365 E1 for 6 months available to all volunteers, so that we can continue to coordinate, you can continue to coordinate the important work that volunteers do day in and day out. Here are a few more resources on how to work remotely, a crash course on Teams if you need additional support, but also more guides on how to use Teams for nonprofits. And you can access through the links as well all the resources I mentioned earlier that we have available for nonprofits during COVID. Some tips, some tricks, and also, and perhaps more importantly, a checklist of how to work remotely in an inclusive way so that everybody can be their best selves at work during these really hard times. I wanted to close off by thanking every one of you for joining us today. And once again, thank you for the really critical work that you're doing for the communities that we serve or that you're serving, and that we're honored to be able to support you to do so. Thanks again. We'll now open it for Q&A. Tina, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Diana and Paul, for presenting. We have been inundated with tons of questions. So I'm just going to let everyone know that we'll try our best to get through as many as we can. But if we don't have enough time, we will take these questions offline and make sure that they are all answered in a timely manner. So if you guys are ready, we'll kick off with the first question. So this one should be for you, Paul, I think. Is Teams suitable for telehealth GP patient consult sessions? What about compliance to security and privacy around patient data and GP patient confidentiality?
Yeah, that's a common question we're getting a lot of right now. Thank you for the person that asked that. We already have lots of telehealth scenarios running around the world today. In fact, we have a dedicated health site which talks about how we use Teams, or how you can use Teams for that. Teams, as I did allude to before, is secured end to end, and we provide a whole set of resources online around our security and privacy fundamentals and processes and what we adhere to. Probably a little bit more than I can go into today, but yes, we absolutely have that scenario, and yes, it's a good use case.
Cool. Another question. Can you run different teams from different organizations into one program? Currently, they're treating it as separate. So is that possible?
Yeah, I think probably just reading between the lines, I think the question is really asking if you're part of one organization and you have teams running, can you also access teams in another organization? If I'm getting that correct, I mean, the short answer is yes, you can. Myself at Microsoft, we obviously run teams, and I can do a little toggle switch in the top right-hand area of teams and switch to a different organization's teams environment. You can't combine them together, but we have introduced a new rapid switch feature now, so you don't have to log in and out. So that's pretty cool, yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Next question is Teams only available for Office 365? I see that it connects to both the phone and the iPad.
I'm really pleased someone asked that question because we probably don't always make it clear. Diana's just covered some of the offers that we have for charity not-for-profit organisations. For the most part, it's free for those organisations that are eligible. But we also have something called the Teams Freemium Edition. So anybody, whether you're somebody at home, somebody with a sports club, or whatever it might be, if you want to run Teams up, even separately from your own organization that you're representing today on this call, you can just jump on to just do a standard web search for Teams free, Microsoft Teams free, and you will get the free edition. It works much like Skype does, to be honest, guys, but it has all of the capability that so you don't need to, you don't have to have a special kind of sign up or login or anything, and anybody can join a call as long as they've got a link. So you don't have to have people signed up already. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. So about hosting calls as well. Do people have to be within your organization so that they can join a meeting?
Anybody, yeah, I think almost goes to the point I just made before. I think, if I understand the question correctly, when I schedule a meeting at Microsoft, you do have to have a Teams account to schedule a meeting, whether it's the free account or through the Office 365 account. Once I schedule a meeting, I can do that in Outlook, and that will create a meeting link in my calendar. And I can email that invite, obviously, to anybody. I could email it to everybody on this call, for instance. And when they click on that link, it will take them directly into the Teams client in the browser. You don't need any account to log in to access that webinar or that session.
Thank you, Paul. I think that answers quite a few of the questions that have been asked about inviting external people into a meeting. So the next one is, what is the maximum number of people for the video call?
The current Teams video calling in the client product itself is 250. We are shortly about to increase that because of COVID-19 to 350. If people would need more than that, then we have a service called Teams Live Events. And Teams Live Events can scale to 10,000 users. And Teams Live Events is a little bit more like GoToWebinar, actually, the product that we're using right now, because with live events, you schedule a live event and you have a presenter role, you have an organizer role, and then you have a specific Q&A type function like you guys are using right now. So, and that is part of the Teams environment that you get as a non-for-profit with the E1 plan.
Thanks, Paul. In terms of language transcription, where can they find the full list of languages that are supported?
We do provide a lot of documentation at docs.microsoft.com. So for those that are a bit more maybe either technically minded or you wanted to really get under the covers and kind of look at all of the infinite detail, docs.microsoft.com, and just search for Teams on there and you'll get our entire Teams, what we call service descriptions, and that covers everything that the product does and all the questions like languages.
Thanks, Paul. Next question is, how does OneRetrieve work from the cloud?
When you work on documents automatically inside of Teams or in Office now, the default save location is in quote unquote the cloud. It's stored in ultimately a place called SharePoint Online. So Teams itself is the front end, but the storage is based on SharePoint Online. SharePoint is part of Office 365, and it basically manages all of your documents in the cloud. So it stores them available on any device through the Teams or through a web browser accessing SharePoint itself. And SharePoint itself is also a broader product. It does do things like intranets and knowledge management and things like that as well. But think about that as a replacement for your file server. And the most important thing is you don't need a VPN connection. So I'm sitting here at home in my home office, and I have full access to all of Microsoft's documents and collateral and everything simply by going through a web browser or Teams.
Thanks, Paul. Now, this next question, I think it can be answered by all of us. I believe my interpretation on this is more of the implementation and usage of Teams. So is there a risk that extremely busy senior management may find this entire experience overwhelming?
Let me start off on that. There is definitely some cultural change that is important to bring into a company when you deploy Teams if you want to get the maximum benefit and use from the product. Having said that, let me take a quick step back. You can deploy Teams and just use it for video conferencing. If that's what you need, if you're happy using email for most of your communications and saving documents the way you normally do it, you can just use Teams for just video conferencing or just calling or just chat if you wanted to. But we do recommend that companies take a top-down approach, and we think it's important that the management of an organization are engaged and involved in using Teams to help create that, that culture of sharing and collaboration, which I think is important in every organization in this day and age. And Microsoft produces a lot of really great collateral around how you can make sure that Teams is a success in your business. And Diana had some links before that she touched on, but we do have things like, how to get started videos. What's the best practice for doing this? How do you get people involved in using different areas of the product? So there's lots of content available.
Thank you, Paul. Next question is about licensing. Can I sign into multiple devices with one single license for Teams?
Yes. Teams is a user-based license, and so you can run Teams on actually really however many devices you want. I have a laptop, I have a phone. Unfortunately, I ran out of time. I didn't get to show my phone. But if you're all running Office 365 today, I would highly recommend that you install the Teams app on your phone. In fact, also install the Office apps, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook on your phone. I just highly recommend those, just generally speaking anyway. But yeah, it's a really great experience. And then you can install it on your iPad, your desktop at work and your home computer, wherever you are, really. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. Next question is, how do you find the section you want during the stream?
So I assume the question is meaning the recording. So stream is Microsoft technology, a little bit like sort of YouTube, I suppose you could say. So you simply go to the stream, you open and when I showed the demonstration before I showed a video, you basically go to the location of that video and you'll get a full Q&A window, you'll get the transcript window and you can search through the transcript then. So the full recording is actually transcribed. So what you're searching for is essentially the transcription. So yeah, you just go, you click through the link on the recording that you were on.
Thanks, Paul. Next question is, how long is the history kept?
Immutable actually. So yeah, all chat teams themselves and meetings have essentially immutable history. So yeah, you can continue to obviously there's a point where you may decide to, there's kind of a life cycle management thing with Teams where, you might decide to archive off some teams and some data, but essentially it's available for, unless you run out of storage space, but there are ways to increase that as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Now, if an organization is new to Teams and Zoom, could you share some key differences that they could consider between these two conference call apps?
Yeah, it's a bit of a longer answer, that one, to that question, but the short version, just for the time we've got today, but the short answer to it is that Teams is a lot more than just a video conferencing app. There's lots of products that do video conferencing. We're using one of them right now, right? GoToWebinar is actually a really great product if you want to do webinar registrations and do this kind of thing. Zoom's a great product for doing multi-window video display for quick meetings and things like that. Teams is a broader product. It does all of the things like I mentioned around chat. The meeting lifecycle management's a big differentiator, and we like to think that our security and privacy, the way that we handle and manage data, and the services is a big benefit to Teams. But not only that, is that with Office 365, if you're already running Office 365, you already have Teams. So we recommend that companies that are invested in Office 365, and remember that it's free for the most part for most charity and not-for-profit organizations, you already have Teams. So going and using another product actually creates more confusion and complexity in your business, and does also create potentially more surface attack areas and you know, potential leakage of intellectual property as well. So just have a think about that side of it as well.
Thank you, Paul. Next question is, we have a remote desktop gateway, webcams, and sometimes speakers will not work. If we do meetings through Teams, will that work through the remote desktop gateway, or will we need to do these outside the VPN?
I'm not 100% sure on that question. If the person's referring to remote desktop services, like running a virtualized desktop or something slightly different, Teams itself has been optimized to run through Citrix for remote desktops, and we also have something called Windows Virtual Desktop as Microsoft, which we are optimizing Teams audio and video for. But typically, we recommend most organizations are running Teams and Office locally on their computer. That includes their mobile device as well. I'd be happy, by the way, to take some of these questions offline, and so we can share my details, and people can contact me as well. Be happy to cover those more complicated ones.
We'll definitely do, Paul. We'll send you a copy of the questions so you can answer them, and we can send back to the participants. But moving on to another question, more in terms of security. If you allow guest users to participate in the chat, what stops them? What stops the guest from accessing your entire Teams environment?
Yeah, guests are only granted rights to either the chat that they're in, so if you add someone into just a one-to-many chat, or you can add them into an entire Teams group, like the team itself. If you add them to the group, they'll have access to all team channels, unless you make a channel private. And so that's where a little bit of thought needs to go into how you do share and how you do bring external people in. At Microsoft, we have a number of teams which are specifically designated for external sharing, so that we don't accidentally do it, although we have controls in place to do that, to ensure that doesn't happen as well. The other thing is that when you do an external guest invitation, the team actually gets a little flag against it, so you know that there are external members of that team. So that if you're posting in there, that you can be aware of that in the future. You can also, if you wanted to go to the next level, and I won't spend too much time talking about it here, is putting in information rights management. And information rights management essentially locks down data from your communications, your chats, your videos, your conferencing stuff, that is, and your documents. You can lock those down so that only certain people with the right rights can access them.
Thanks, Paul. Next one is, I'm involved in multiple companies, all with Teams. Can I have multiple teams open, say, on one desktop?
Yeah, so that's, I alluded to this earlier. It's a good question. Thank you for asking that. There is a quick switcher now, as I mentioned before. You can, in the upper right-hand corner, you can switch between your organizations that you're a member of. Works very, very well. However, having said that, the notifications will only be delivered to you for the current organization that you're in, if that makes sense, that you're kind of logged into. But what you can do, there is a couple of sort of hacks, if you like, perfectly legitimate use cases though, and that is that you can run multiple different browsers. So you can have Teams on the desktop client, and then you can have several browsers. You can have Chrome in incognito mode, you can have Edge in incognito mode, you can have Firefox in incognito mode, and you can log into each of those different environments straight through a web browser. Works very well.
Thanks, Paul. Now, if an organization has members or colleagues in remote areas where internet can be limited, do they have the option to dial in to join the Teams meeting?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would have liked to have shown that. I just ran out of time today, but I think we're planning some more webinars for this, so do keep an eye out for the folk that are still on the call, and we'll go into a lot more of those sort of more 200 level deeper stuff for the next rounds. But yes, the short answer is we provide audio conferencing dial-in to Teams webinars. Yeah.
Okay, next question is one that quite a few people have asked. At the moment, we can only see 4 people on the screen at once. It sort of makes the other people feel left out.
The way that Teams works is it brings up the video of the most recent speakers, up to 4 of them. So the thinking behind it is that usually you don't have more than 4 people talking at once, and by providing only those speakers video, you're getting a high definition experience of just the people that are speaking, when you don't need to look at the people that aren't speaking. If you think when you're sitting in a conference room, you're not looking at everybody's face, you're only looking at the speakers. That's the thinking behind it. Now, having said that, yes, there are other products out there that do a bigger wall of windows, and we are working on that. We are running some of that internally already at Microsoft, and I would expect to see us launch a 3x3, that's 9 video display within the next couple of months.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Now, this is a broader question. So what basic training is offered or are available for people who haven't used Teams?
Yeah, we provide a lot of training. One of the links that everyone will get the presentation from today, and there is a link that Diana mentioned, which is all the standard Teams introductory training. They're 5 to 10 minute long videos that cover all of the key areas of the product. The stuff I've covered today and actually a lot more. And they're really good little snackable videos, very easy to understand. And I hope that you all agree that by looking at Teams today, you will notice that it's a fairly intuitive interface. It works pretty similarly to other kind of apps and consumer apps that you will have used before. So we find that most people pick it up pretty quickly as well. But yes, we provide a lot of online training.
Thanks, Paul.
Great,
Sorry,
thanks.
just to piggyback on that as well. Sorry, Tina.
No, that's right.
Connecting up and TechSoup both also run courses platforms where you can access free courses to Teams, one of which is a Teams course that is fixed inside a larger COVID response package. We'll be sending these courses, links to these courses to you after the webinar.
Thanks, Jed. So this will be the last question for today. We do have tons and tons and tons of questions left to go through, which we will export and send through to Diana and Paul to have a look at and get back to everybody as soon as we can.
And I apologise to everyone on the call. We obviously have quite a bit of content to get through. I'll learn that lesson for next time. We'll make sure we leave more for Q&A.
That's all right. It just means that people have an appetite for this. These lessons, Paul, so it's always a good sign. So the final question we're going to ask is, if someone is outside my organization and joins a group on my organization's team as a guest, which features will be limited to them? For example, do they have the right to edit a Word file within the group?
Yes, yes, they do. If they're added to a team itself, not to a chat, but in a team, they will have access to all of the features essentially in that team. So if file storage is in that, if you're using files in that team or in those channels, that person will have the rights to. You can stop that though, so you can block rights to. That's actually there's a few broader topics within that one actually, because Office 365 itself, you can just put a blanket rule saying that nobody outside your company can access documents. In which case you can invite someone to a team, but then they still wouldn't have access to the documents. That's more of a blanket Office 365 rule rather than a Teams feature though. The short answer is you can have it whichever way you wanted to, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul and Diana, for presenting today. Was there anything you wanted to add before we wrap up the session?
No, thanks, Tina.
Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to add is that, we continue to be committed to supporting organizations throughout the pandemic. So don't hesitate to reach out to us, either TechSoup or Connecting Up or Microsoft, and let us know if there's any more content that you need, or any other type of webinar or course or content that might be helpful for us to develop. Thanks so much again for joining us today, and hope you found this helpful.
Great.
Yeah, thanks all for joining. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul and Diana, both for taking the time to present today. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you've all learned a lot from the presentation, and that some of your questions have been answered. If you do have any other questions that come to mind later on, or any feedback at all, please send that through to events@connectingup.org. And don't forget that we will be uploading the recording and the slides and sending these resources out. So please be patient. We'll email it through to you. I understand it's a long weekend this weekend, so we'll aim to have everything to you by close of business Tuesday. Again, thank you for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Diana. Thanks, Jed. See you, everyone.